When you think of Michael Jackson, do you picture the glitz of music videos or the small town boy rehearsing after school in Gary, Indiana? Let me tell you a story that starts not with sequin gloves, but with the clang of a steel mill and a house full of music. Michael was the youngest of 9. Growing up, where discipline and melody were inseparable. His father, Joe, steelworker by day and bandleader by night, drilled the Jackson kids on harmonies and choreography. Imagine a metronome ticking, but instead of just keeping time, it sets the pace of your entire childhood. Family jam sessions weren't just fun, they were lessons in syncopation and resilience. Catherine, Michael's mother, infused the household with gospel and kindness, teaching empathy in every note. Now, you might be thinking, wasn't this pressure too much for a child? Absolutely, it was a crucible. But it forged something rare, a performer who felt music in his bones. The rigors of talent shows, where each stumble was a lesson in stage presence and failure, were Michael's real classrooms. This is where the seeds of stardom were planted, watered by sweat and sibling rivalry, and lit by the unwavering belief that through music, you could move the world even if you started in a modest Indiana living room. Picture this. You're a child, heart pounding, standing in a Detroit studio, about to audition for Motown. Berry Gordy, the kingpin of soul, promises your family will make history. That's the moment the Jackson 5 leapt from local legends to international icons. Motown was more than a label, it was a hit factory using assembly line precision, like Ford, but for funk. Under Gordy's laser focus on arrangement and style, the Jackson 5 released I Want You Back, a song that seemed to defy gravity with its driving bass and infectious hooks. But let's not forget a key player, Diana Ross. She wasn't just a superstar. She was a mentor and surrogate sibling, teaching Michael to see art in color, not just in black and white keys. Think of Motown as a crucible of creativity, but also conformity. The Jacksons learned stagecraft and professionalism, but at the cost of their free time and sometimes their childhood. Can you feel the tension? The thrill of seeing your name top the charts, but also the ache of growing up in the public eye, with fans and flashbulbs replacing school friends. This was a machine that could catapult you to fame, but it demanded everything, right down to your last note. Ever felt trapped by your own success? Michael did. By the mid-1970 seconds, the Jackson 5 were global stars, but Motown's closed-door policy on songwriting left them creatively caged. Here's a technical term: publishing rights. It means ownership of your own music, and Motown held the keys. The Jacksons longed to write and produce, to put their own stories to melody. Imagine the family boardroom, tension thick, as Jermaine chooses to stay with Motown while the rest jump ship to Epic Records. That's more than a business decision, it's a rift in the family harmony. The switch to Epic was risky, and with it came the challenge of self-definition. Would they sync without Motown's formula? Michael stepped into leadership, learning to negotiate contracts and fight for creative autonomy, a term that's the artistic equivalent of oxygen. The move paid off, but not without scars. Michael's first acting gig in The Wiz was less about Dorothy's Road than about his own journey towards self-realization. The lesson? Sometimes breaking away from the machine is the only way to find your true sound, even if it means hitting a few bum notes along the way. Let's talk about risk and reward. At 21, Michael Jackson teamed up with Quincy Jones, a producer whose musical vocabulary spanned jazz, pop, and everything in between. Together, they crafted Off the Wall, an album that wasn't just a collection of songs, but a declaration of independence. They experimented with multi-track recording. Think of it as stacking dozens of voices and instruments until the sound lifts off the vinyl. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough wasn't just a dance hit. It was a message, a technical marvel built on syncopated rhythms and orchestral layers. But even as Off the Wall soared, Michael felt a sting. The Grammys snubbed him. Now you might be thinking, what's one trophy? But for Michael, it was about validation proof that he'd transcended child stardom, fueled by disappointment in his perfectionist drive, he set his sights higher. Thriller. This was more than an album. It was a cultural supernova. Music videos became short films, choreographed with cinematic ambition. Synthesizers and drum machines, two technical powerhouses, expanded the palette. But the real gamble? Pouring every ounce of emotion into the music, despite the weight of expectation. The payoff. History's best-selling album, but also the realization that commercial success doesn't always heal old wounds. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be the most famous person on earth and yet feel utterly alone? After Thriller, Michael lived in a paradox, adored by millions, stalked by scandal, and aching for normalcy. The 1,984 Pepsi commercial accident when a pyrotechnic mishap left him with third-degree burns was a turning point. Suddenly, fame wasn't just exhausting, it was dangerous. Yet, Michael turned pain into purpose, donating his Pepsi settlement to the burn center that bore his name. This is philanthropy, the act of using one's platform for healing, not just applause. On the Victory Tour, performing alongside his brothers, he felt the bittersweet joy of shared dreams and lost innocence. But the backstage pranks, the laughter with Janet, reminded him of simpler times when music was about unity, not headlines. Through it all, Michael clung to a belief. Music could bridge divides, racial, generational, emotional. If you want to make the world a better place, he sang, take a look at yourself and make a change. In the end, the King of Pop's greatest legacy wasn't chart records or dance moves, but the reminder that vulnerability and compassion matter, even on the grandest of stages.